Hey guys, Simon from ARB Shepparton. One of the great things about being in sales for over 20 years is the people you get to meet and the stories they tell. I find it fascinating to sit down with a customer and go through all the places they've been, the things they've done and the things they've seen. So we want to bring some of those stories to you. So we're going to grab a group of customers, head up the bush, do some four-wheel driving and let them tell you their story. So sit back, relax, stay tuned while we bring you ARB Shepparton's Four-Wheel Driving with Friends. Hey guys, Simon from ARB Shepparton and welcome to another episode of ARB Shepparton's Four-Wheel Driving with Friends. On today's episode, we meet a customer who not only loves to get out in the tracks with his four-wheel drive, but also uses them for work purposes as well. Welcome aboard, Shayne Tully.
Thanks for having me, Simon.
Pleasure, mate. So Shayne, let's dive into your background a little bit. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, Simon, I grew up in Beechworth, born and bred there. However, my parents bought a property up at Corryong or Burrawee. It was on the side of a mountain, and that's where we travelled up on weekends to work on that, and it's where our four-wheel driving started.
So Shayne, you mentioned your four-wheel driving started up near Corryong. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, look, we did have a farm up there, and it was a steep farm. It was quite inaccessible when we got it. And Dad, being into roads and construction and bridges and so forth, decided that it wasn't a challenge. We built a track into the farm, and then we started working on the farm. It took us a long time, but we started with a four-wheel drive as a Nissan G60. And we just found it too heavy to get us in there. It was getting bogs. We'd get up there early in the morning and spend all day getting the thing out of a bog or recovering the car, and by that stage it was time to go home. It was an hour and a half drive back home. So then we got this little Suzuki LJ80, I think it was. It was like the first four-cylinder of those Suzukis. Up till then they were two-stroke, three cylinders. And this was a little ute, and we could get it up around there, but came with its challenges. There's many times there Dad would say hop out on the bonnet to keep the front wheels down because the hill was so steep to get up, and then as part of that we drove it as well, so we were always in there driving, moving machinery, and that's probably where that passion started. I suppose I was always trying to think of ways to make the cars better, that we weren't spending so long digging ourselves out of trouble. So I think that's where that started, and getting cars into places that you just couldn't normally do. So that's where it started.
So you grew up in Beechworth. When did you first move to Shepparton?
I moved to Shepparton in 1998 and came over to work for a business here that was based in Bendigo, but I started a branch sort of thing in Shepparton, and then I moved out to Tully in 2005 and started my own business, and we've still got the business out there, and that's developed, and that's our home life now is around Tully, and it's a great community and great place to bring your kids up. So that's how we end up out there.
So Shayne, you mentioned you got your own business. Can you tell us a bit about where that all began for you?
Yeah, look, after Beechworth I moved to Bendigo to be a school teacher of all things. I went to university there, and I did a year of that and decided that wasn't quite me. And I was always pretty good with my hands and working on gear, and I moved into the refrigeration trade. So I got an apprenticeship and worked through that, and I was very fortunate to work for eventually worked for a business in Bendigo, and the guy was a bit of a mentor to me, and he was fantastic, and I stayed with him for right up till virtually to 2004, and you know, through some unfortunate circumstances for that family, I ended up starting out my own business, and that's when I moved to Shepparton. I moved to Shepparton actually for this company, and after, you know, eventually started my own business. Yeah.
So you're a refrigeration mechanic. So how does that link into your four-wheel driving? And
Well, I do a couple of things for the business, and a lot of that's on the industrial air conditioning side, air quality, and we look after a few factories around the Golden Valley. But also we do several contracts, whether it's in the banking sector, so or communications side of things, and that gets us travelling a lot. So we cover from Swan Hill up to Corryong, around the Alpine regions back to around Seymour. That's our patch that we look after for various companies. And in particular with the four-wheel driving is the communication industry. A lot of the places that we've travelled today, there's communication towers out, you know, mountainous regions, and tricky places to get to. And when these towers, air conditioning don't work, they overheat and your mobile phones don't work. So it's fairly important that they get somebody like us out to those places. And we've sort of built up a fleet of cars now that have, thanks to you guys, because you guys deck them out for us, that we need some reliable vehicles, reliable products that gets us out there and to these places where we can carry heavy loads and replace air conditioners or do whatever we need to do to get that tower up and going again. So that's where that came into it, and it's one of those things that you pinch yourself at times because you're doing what you love, four-wheel driving, and you're getting paid for it. Like, it's almost funny, you know. You love doing it, and you go to these amazing places. And look, in the last 2 weeks alone, we've been doing a lot up around almost to the Snowy River country, up the top of the Murray River at least, and a couple of mountains up there in the last week. Up through the snow at times to get to places, and you know, some really tough tracks and carry heavy gear. So we need some good reliable product, and that's where you guys have come into it and have been fantastic decking out our work vehicles. And you can't afford to get stuck for obvious reasons. You've got the safety of your staff, you've got to get the gear there and get these towers up and going. And you've got to be able to get yourself out of any difficult situation that you get in as well when you do it. So that's where these girls get kitted out, and they do a great job.
so Shane, you told us a little bit about your work. What about your own personal cars? Where did it start with your own four-wheel drives?
Simon, I was around 27. I'd just gone back to work for the company that was from Bendigo. I'd moved back to Shepparton at that time. We talked about that before. But I managed to pick up through a guy that I knew there, a Nissan G60, 1974 model. I got it very cheap, and I remember going into the Shep four-wheel drive doors for the first time over that car, and that was 1998. And I got some suspension done on it, and a lot of the time you fitted it yourself back then, those days. You got the gear, you fitted it out, you didn't have the money to, you know, you're building your own cars, you're doing that. And went out with the boys to Langy Forest, had some great trips where you push them hard, you're still learning, you're getting into trouble, you're learning all the times that you muck up, and you know, it was great fun. The car didn't cost a lot of money, it was bulletproof. It was very heavy, so it did like sinking, it didn't like mud, you got it caught up with that. And then after a couple of years, I managed to pick up a Toyota FJ73 as the LX model. And I thought that was pretty fancy. It had the suspension seats in it. It was the same model as one of these. It seemed to have more tech on it back then for some reason that they've still got on these. And you know, it was probably the love of my life at that stage. I started again, suspension, you know, protection and winches, and you know, pushed it out on some really good family trips I was doing then too. And Yeah, and that was good fun. I had that for a long time. And my daughter learnt to drive in that too when she was like 14. We'd go down the bush and she'd drive that around, and fantastic. Yeah, good cars. It was good, but being part of that, building them and working out what you could do and where it got you. So that was early days, and then later on needed some work cars, as we were talking about before. So there's a Hilux that we kitted out to get us to a lot of the work stuff, but there was some private, personal stuff as well. And then I got a Land Cruiser 76 series, 4-door wagon, and it was just like the old FJ73, still had the same kit inside. They haven't changed a thing, which Toyota's renowned for, but ever reliable. And started again with that, and I've still got that car. So it's been on a lot of great trips, and we'll keep doing it on family trips.
That's awesome, man. Now, you mentioned the trips. So what's some of your most memorable trips that you've been on? And
I'd say in the FJ73 series, we did the Fink River system. I remember I had my mum and my daughter with me, and picked up my brother and his partner from Alice Springs, and we put a camper trailer on and dragged it through the Fink system. And he had some awesome local knowledge, and he took us to places that were amazing. And there's a lot of getting bogged and getting stuck, but it was a real job to pull the camper through that then, and that was an awesome trip. Just camped out in the desert, and how amazing that was. Look up, see the stars, it's so clear, the wildlife, and it's just, everything changes every hour. Even though you might be in a desert system, everything changes, and you just love it. I love travelling that and doing that. So that was one of the early ones, and I'd say in the last 10 years, done some great trips in the 76 series. Fraser Island, I was talking about this with my family last night. They remembered that. Travelling over to the west coast side of Fraser, the east side, and it was good fun, and some challenging parts there. I did nearly drown it in the Arrowatta Creek there. Everyone knows about that one. But we come through, and the wife's still talking to me. It took a little while. That was awesome. And I'd say 2 years ago we did Cape York and dragged a camper trailer up that. That was very challenging, very rewarding, and it was just a fantastic trip. Getting the car out of gunshot with a camper trailer on, people were struggling to get out of there. We were the only two people who had camper trailers. A mate of mine comes with his family, and he's got a pretty stock standard car, and he follows us along, and it's amazing what he can do with that, because he's got some skills. He's been into four-wheel driving for a long time, but that was an awesome trip.
so Shane, you mentioned some great trips there, great memories with family, awesome times. Let's throw to the build we're standing on at the moment. Can you tell us a little bit about this one? So she is a bit of a beast. It's a great thing. Tell us a little bit about it.
Simon, this was a little project that got a bit out of hand, I'd have to say. But look, I needed a car that could carry either staff or weekends family. So I needed a dual cab. And we talked about at work what we need for the canopy on the back. So we design these ourselves, and we get Sidwell Engineering Shepparton to build them. And they work on our extra cabs quite well, but we had to do a lot to get that on a dual cab. So she got extended.
So it's got a 300mm chassis.
It's got a 300mm chassis extension. It's got the J-Max coil conversion system in it. It's got King's remote shocks. We find that is amazing. The coils and the shocks and the travel on this, it's very smooth when you get off-road. It's when it really comes into its own. And we've got some good protection on it. We need that, of course. And if we're really stuck, we pull the winch out, which I try not to do.
All right, Shane, so last one for you, mate. What's the most memorable experience you've had in a four-wheel drive?
Look, I'll have to put in two answers to this one. One is because it would be actually not so much getting into gunshot because we took the easier route. We were pulling along the camper trailer, but coming along through the creek and getting out. And 2 years ago, the challenge was to get out, and people were having a lot of difficulties without camper trailers. And we got there, and it was just one of those moments where the horsepower we had from the mods that we've done on the car, and everything working in that moment, we got out of there, just shot out of it with a camper trailer. And a lot of people were saying we couldn't do it, and it was a very memorable moment for me. And I think that's an indication of having all the good kit on there to help you do it. And then I'll flip to the other one. Further up the Tully track was Cannonball, where you drop down a really steep bank into a river water system, and then you got to do a U-turn and come out. And when we got to there, we caught up to the whole crowd. There was, I think, 49 cars in line, and I don't know where we were on that, but it took a long time to get through. And coming out of Cannonball, everybody was struggling, and there were some young guys in there with 35s and all the go, and they were just giving it heaps, and we're just watching going, oh my God, they're chopping the track, we are never going to get out of here. And then there was this poor guy that had a brand spanker cruiser, went in front of us, just the adrenaline that was involved at that moment. I think he gave it too much, and he got up and he rolled it. So we're sitting there going, oh dear, we're next. You know, you've got everybody watching you, the pressure, and we went up to help, but you'd imagine 49 cars there, there's 100 and something people or more, a lot of experts there to help this guy. We thought we'll leave him to it. And I looked at my mate who had the stock standard Isuzu, pulling a camper trailer, and said, have you got a shovel? And the two of us shoveled out this track, and once again, all the comments around us like, what do these blokes think they're doing? And when we got to our time, we both got up, and I thought I was doing well. He came up with this Isuzu. And while there was the mixed emotions, it was like, no one believed that we did it. I think we upset them all a bit too, because then we took the fun away for everyone that was following us. We just levelled the track in like 3 hours. So I think that's the two, you know, it goes to show that yes, we had the gear, but the experience we'd learnt from years of doing this, we could go with just a couple of shovels and actually take the time. But it's very difficult to do that when you're under pressure with so many people watching you too. So that's my two memorable experiences with the families, and the whole trip getting to that, what we saw and what we did for that couple of weeks, you know, you can't beat it.
Shayne, thanks very much for coming along and spending some time with us, and thanks for letting us hear your story. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Really appreciate it.
Look, Simon, I've really enjoyed today. It's been great coming out with a crew, and it's been a really good day, mate, so thanks a lot too.
Oh, that's awesome. So there you go, guys, another episode. Stay tuned, and remember, ARB Shepparton, 180 Vanilla Road. We'll see you there.
I just watched it for you.
Did you like that one, Ben? We just rolled into that one. Double question there. So
Yeah.
we're getting better.
We
What's the
are.
Zonk's question? Is that all right or
Were you
not?
waiting for me to say something?
No.
I
Other
think
than
you
laugh
did
at
it well.
me.
You did well.
You want to do it again or?
No,
Cool. Don't laugh at me.
I'll